But the point is that if this is what we're getting to, and this is the criterion for who is a terrorist, you would think, you really would think that you'd be worried about giving your president the authority to kill Americans on American soil without any kind of due process. So I find it quite alarming. I think the answer, that he could have given is pretty simple. I think there's a possibility even that his answer, that he actually may even agree with some of the things we're saying here today. But why won't he give it? I think presidents, Republican and Democrat, don't give the answer because they're afraid of constricting their authority at all. They believe in some sort of inherent power that's not listed anywhere, but they just think they've got it. And they don't want to give up any of it. They jealously guard their power. So they have this power and they don't want to give it up. And so that's why they won't answer us with a straight answer. So you get things that the only word I can think of it is gobbledygook. You get this craziness that comes from attorneys that makes no sense. So when he was asked, what is an imminent threat? These people that we're going to kill with drones have to be an imminent threat. But his attorneys say, well, imminent doesn't have to mean immediate. That's the only way they can justify, because probably half of these drone attacks are people who really aren't engaged in any kind of combat. That's a different debate. You can argue right or wrong whether we should be killing these people not involved in combat because there's evidence they are conspiring to hurt us and to attack us. That's another argument. But it's a pretty low standard. And you can argue, well, that's war over there, and that's a lower standard, I can accept it. But for goodness sakes, could there be any question that in America we're going to accept a standard so low, a standard that basically says that if we think you might someday be engaged in hostilities, we can kill you? We have to be careful, because the criteria for the drone strike program overseas really is something that I think most Americans wouldn't accept for their fellow citizens. Overseas, one of the most famous American citizens they killed was Al-Awlaki. Before he was killed, he was primarily killed as someone who they said was a sympathizer. I think there's no question he's a sympathizer. He, I think, denounced his citizenship. He was a bad guy. He sympathized with our enemies. And I think he could have been tried for treason. I think if I were on the jury, from what I've read of the non-classified information, I would have voted for his guilt and for his death. But the thing is, some kind of process might be helpful. His son, though, 16 years old, was killed 2 weeks later in a separate drone strike, and he was on nobody's list that I know of. They won't respond. But I think the response by the president's spokesman is reprehensible and really should be called out. I mean, it's sort of this flippant response that I think shows absolutely no regard for individual rights or for Americans. He said, well, the kid should have chosen a more responsible father. Think about that. Is that the standard that you wish your government to operate on in America? We got a lot of criminals in our country. We got a lot of bad people. If you happen to be the son of a bad person, is that enough to kill you? The other thing is that people killed overseas that are not the target, they don't call them civilians because they say anybody between the age of 16 and 50 that's a male is a potential combatant. Are we going to use that same standard here in our country? Are we going to use the standard in our country that if you just happen to be a male and you happen to be standing near somebody that we've judged to be a problem, that you're going to go ahead and, oh, I guess that's not even collateral damage. That person was probably a bad person because he was standing close to this person. I think there are different standards for war than there are for within our country. And it's not always going to be perfect. And there is legitimate debate over what the rules should be in a war, where a war is overseas, and exactly what happens. And I think good, honest people can disagree on some of that. But what I worry about are the people who say that America is a battlefield. Because when they say America is a battlefield, they say that they want the laws of war to apply here.